on the project, why are we doing this, and then I'll hand it back over to Dr. Jin to go over some of the specifics. So I'll give you the overview, and then once we get to the specifics regarding the architecture, I will hand it over to Dr. Jin, and he'll go over some of the data sources that we're specifically identifying and figuring out how to pull into our ATSPM system. And just so everyone is aware, ATSPM stands for Automated Traffic Signal Performance Metrics. It's synonymous with Real-Time Traffic Signal System Performance Metrics. So, as I mentioned before, we contacted the Bureau of Research to get Rutgers University on board, and we created this contract. And really the purpose of this work is to take a look at our existing traffic signal systems that we have, primarily adaptive traffic signal systems, and pull it into a well-known and well-used ATSPM database that has been deployed by many agencies throughout the United States. And we realized that we didn't want to have multiple data sources that we would have to go to better understand our traffic signal systems. We wanted basically one platform, and that way we could see essentially how the adaptive traffic signal systems are performing, as well as non-adaptive traffic signal systems that are connected to this infrastructure. So ATSPMs came out as part of an Everyday Counts initiative from the Federal Highway Administration. There's some stats here. Approximately 40% of vehicle accidents and 20% of fatal crashes occur at an intersection. So some of the metrics that you're able to pull from an ATSPM system would be something like red light running or yellow interval running. And the way you're able to do that is really by looking at two sources of data. You have data that's coming into the traffic signal controller. So those are all the inputs, and then you're going to have outputs. Basically, what is the traffic signal controller doing at that time? Is it providing a green interval, a yellow, or a red interval? And we'll get into some more specifics about how those are actually tracked and measured and pushed into a database. All right, so I've kind of gone over it already. I don't want to reiterate too much before handing over to Dr. Jim, but just to recap, ATSPMs is essentially a platform for traffic engineers and other users to monitor traffic signal performance. It's essentially an optimization tool, much like Synchro is an optimization tool, much like an adaptive traffic signal system is an optimization tool for traffic engineers. And it pulls information in that you can see in real time and what's really happening on the roadway. So it's not a simulation, it's not a model. It is something where you're actually seeing what the impact is to the motoring public at that signalized intersection. And then you can make better decisions on how you're going to operate that signal based on the data that you see coming in. Here's just a timeline of the project. All I can say, it's been a long time coming. It's been several years, and a big part of that actually is figuring out how to take as I mentioned before, a well-used existing application that runs off of a database, and how to actually bring that into the state of New Jersey. So there was a lot of coordination with the New Jersey Office of Information Technology to create the infrastructure where we could then actually run this application, and figuring out how to take existing sources of data and actually translate that to become part of the ATSPM system. So those are really the key points to this project that it makes it unique when you compare it to the dozen or so other deployments of ATSPMs throughout the United States. So just a little bit background on NJDOT existing operations. So we have just over 2,500 signalized intersections that are owned and operated by NJDOT. We've got 300 signals on controlled traffic signal systems, and over 300 more that are optimized traditionally. So you can imagine if you have a system in place where you're pulling data in real time and you're able to view it, how quickly you could actually optimize those signals, as opposed to developing a data collection plan and then doing some modeling and then simulation of those traffic signal timings and then implementing them and then doing some after studies to say, is the signal actually performing the way our model said it would? And are we actually impacting traffic the way we would? This essentially will shortcut a lot of that, that work, and it will allow the agencies to better make those changes in real time. And I mentioned before that a big focus of this is actually our adaptive traffic signal systems. And you might think, why is that? It's, you know, a small percent. And while it is a small percent of the total number of signals throughout the state, it is something that the Department of Transportation is actively engaged with when it comes to planning, design, and construction. There's several corridors already in full operation for adaptive traffic signal systems, and there's several more that are currently in design, and we have at least 5 corridors that are in active construction at this time. So you can just start to picture how big this network of signals systems is going to be, and having a database in place to better identify how those signals are performing is crucial. So here's just some of the objectives of this research. I've mentioned a few of this before. Again, it's really based on existing infrastructure for the reasons that I just mentioned. We don't want to have to deploy a whole bunch of new pieces of hardware to the field if we don't have to. And so for the cases of our systems that are connected, like adaptive traffic signal systems, we can pull data from those existing systems. And here's just an example of some of the existing infrastructure that's in place. And so that's just a little bit of background on the research project, why we're doing it. And now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Jin to go through a lot of the specifics of the research. Thanks.
Thank you, Kelly. So this is kind of a very comprehensive background of this project, and we've been in this for more than 5 years now, and won a couple of awards, both for student-wise and also the project-wide, and had about 3 or 4 publications so far. But the most exciting thing is we actually are turning our research into something that's actually is going to help Kelly and help mobility engineering to improve the traffic signals. One of the critical issue when we get into the project at the beginning is with the federal highways system, it requires a lot of field deployment. So you need to put, so essentially that's the basic architecture of ATSPM, Federal Highway ATSPM framework. They needed locally deployed program at each signal controller to be able to pull all this data, signal data, and send that to the control center. Which, if you think about it, it's listed about 118 sites for adaptive signal control. If you work on adaptive signal controllers, you know it's the complication there because it's a priority system. Pull any data out of that is a hassle. And in addition to that, there's also the challenges to, this really turns into a field work, hundreds of signals to open up the control cabinets. So we're looking at what existing infrastructure NJDOT already have, which is actually the existing adaptive signal control system. And amazingly, when we dig deeper into the data that's at the back end operating adaptive signal control, it is in high resolution already. And it's have event data at second level, have detector data at microsecond level. So those are information that we can potentially bring in directly to the ATSPM to make it. It doesn't have a already built interface to interact with this adaptive signal system. So our project quickly turns into the focus on these yellow blocks. So looking at work with existing SCAD system, existing autoscope system, and how to turn them into data that can be injected into this ATSPM framework. All right. So we also take a look at what what are the performance metrics that ATSPM provides? So ATSPM is not like a simple red, green, and yellow type of display of the performance or level service display, but it has a rich suite of performance metrics. Some of these are listed here, including some of the more comprehensive but really informing performance metrics like Purdue diagram, phase termination diagram. I'll show you some of the examples later. But to generate these diagrams, it needs both the signal data, signal controller data, which is controller event, and also the detector event data. So this is kind of the chart of looking at if you have signal event data only, what can you generate? If you have detector data only, what can you generate? But some of the focus we have is really in the middle. So when you have detector data and the traffic signal data coordinated with each other together, these diagrams become more informative, looking at arrival on red, looking at red light running. So on safety aspects, operational aspects, this gives you the full picture. So our project at the beginning, in the first phase, mostly still focus on the controller event. So make sure we can generate all those performance metrics in the brown region. And then in the phase 2, we really dig into the detector data to create the full suite of ATSPM functionality. All right. Some of these data sources we considered, so it's a long process. So a lot of the data set we initially have high hoped on, it turns out to be in low resolution or it's too priority to extract out. So starting from the Transcom data, that's really at the link level, giving you more travel time. We're eventually going to build some way of it. Essentially, will be part of a dashboard system later on to be an initial overlook of the signal rather than to have any too much meaningful impact to the actual performance metrics. INRIX travel time data, we were able to bring in as a way of kind of telling the delay and speed information as part of the ATSPM. Dr. Brennan has done a lot of experimentation with that. I think he's even able to mimic some of the speed, approaching speed in some of the space-time diagram. But that's also still not the main input that can generate all those performance metrics. Next, we turn to CCTV traffic video. We did a little bit of exploration in phase 1, looking at, because the traffic, we can essentially get the traffic video data from over 200 locations in the state and convert that into a detector on and off information. But the issue is that it needs a large video analytic resource, the servers to operate, and the videos sometimes you have angle, illumination issues, it may not provide consistent data. NJDOT do have deployment at some of the mid-block sections with Wavetronics sensors. The challenge we had there is some of the sensors are too far away from the intersection to actually create some meaningful information regarding the occurrence on and off arrival on red. And the extraction of these data, it seems also to be in high resolution mode, it seems to also be very resource consuming. The next one, we look at the autoscope stop bar detection. This is where we actually did make a breakthrough towards the end of phase 1 and definitely in phase 2 with some help on the traffic flow theory. We were able to develop some very good input data for ATSPM. So, all right. So this is just to show you some example data set we have for travel time, information from Transcom. This is a very useful tool, essentially help you identify the performance metric, performance issues over a corridor. This is the detailed, some of the event data we explored. And this is the data source for INRIX travel time data. So one of the effort we did is we convert the XD data, which is actually a high resolution probe travel time data. We were able to convert some of those into the speed information as input to the ATSPM. And I don't know if I have a diagram from that, but no. But so some of those information can help us to create essentially the trajectory and approaching of the vehicle performance, so of the vehicle speed performance at the intersection. This is a concept related to CCTV traffic video analytics. We actually had this deployed at the back end in one of those servers, but mostly for the purpose of adding the volume information in addition to what Transcom has been published, there's no volume data in there, but we were able to kind of populate, add some volume information to that at locations where the traffic camera is. And this is the sample data of the wavetronics. You'll see the easiest data that we can get is aggregated by minutes, 5 minutes. But once we want to get into the more high resolution mode, there's some access issues. This is actually the autoscope data. So at the bottom left, you will see the actual. So this is each color blocks is a on and off event for vehicle when they arrive. You see it's really at sub-second level. So we can, once we extract those data out, we're able to tell the on and off pretty nicely. And the challenge with autoscope data is it's a stop bar detector. So all vehicles, once they get into the red phase, you will see no activation whatsoever. But part of the purpose of ATS-PM is to look at the arrival on red, arrival on green, and look at the progression. So what we did is we actually go back and actually looked at some of the research we did with the CCTV traffic camera. If you see that we were able to essentially extract the trajectory, how the vehicle moved along the center line of the lane. So we were able to create this type of trajectory diagram just as they pass through the video. So with that information, we were able to extract a lot of useful traffic flow information. For example, the shockwave speed for queuing, the shockwave speed for releasing. So these information combined with traffic flow theory actually helped us to interpolate, for example, at the backhand 200 feet, 300 feet ahead of the ahead of the star bar, what the traffic condition will look like. It won't be precisely the same, but we did some validation, essentially using the video data. We get pretty close, and it actually is a reflection of the arrival on red, arrival on green. So we were able to actually populate this into the Purdue diagram and actually have observation on both phases, on both red and green phases. So these are kind of a quick summary of how these data turns out and what are they part of the it eventually goes into as an input to the ATS-PM functionality. So as you see that the travel time data, the signal event data turns into the link pivot table. We also have the advanced detection, so this advanced detection is converted from autoscope stop bar detection, and that turns into enabled us a lot of the useful ATS-PM performance metrics. This is a display of the interface of the ATS-PM, and this is essentially the file system we had to support that implements our proposed framework that links SCAT system to ATS-PM. The basic interface, you have a map interface. All the location that you have a signal at will have an icon displayed here, and then you can select from dates to get there, so to generate the performance metrics. This is a backend archiving program. So right now, this program is actually running in after a few months working with OIT and working with Kelly's team. We're able to deploy this event logging and conversion code. So it's actually processing the signal event data every 15 minutes and insert that into ATS-PM. So we're still working on getting the ATS-PM into a public-facing URL, so more people can access like how they access Utah's ATS-PM system. But at the back end, at least for Kelly's team, if they want to look at the performance metrics, they can check in every 15 minutes for that. This is the second portion, really on the signal event data imports. At the conclusion of phase 2, it was still essentially an offline processing process. The issue is that the SCATS is a very unfriendly interface. It doesn't let us export high resolution data on the fly. We have to do that periodically manually. But since then, we have figured out a more advanced program, essentially creating a robot that works on the computers, doing similar clicking as an actual human being will do. And we were able to actually implement just a couple of weeks ago a live archiving of these otoscope detector data, and then does that conversion, advanced detection conversion at the back end with our Python script, and then convert into real-time data. We're still working on some of the kinks, really mostly on the configuration of matching the detector channel with the actual adaptive signal phases. But that thing is also coming on live now. So this is there will be a revised diagram to this one. And then this is, yeah, I think I'm trying to create the live diagram. So it looks very similar, but at the back end, it's going to be a 15-minute interval archiving, or right now probably at the 1 hour level to go through everything. So these are some of the performance metrics that was generated, and this includes the speed records from the INRIX XD data, phase termination. You can look at these, actually indicate different type of termination. So it has the gap out, max out, force. And there's some unknown. So unknown is mostly for us is more of a debugging area. I think we pretty much eliminated all the unknowns. And then there's some pet cycles. You can see that getting activated also. On the top right, there you can see the split monitoring. So it not only have the phase, which phase is activated type of termination, but also showing the duration of that particular cycle phase. And then looking at this split monitoring, this will be more much better observations, looking at the duration till green, duration till yellow, duration till red. So all those information in there. These are some of the more detailed conversions that we conducted. So it's really translating between two systems from SCADs, and SCADs also turns out to be updating from time to time. So we pretty much need to kind of revise this code every almost once a year to adapt to some of the new changes. But it turns to be minor and minor every year. So these are some of the. Let me show you some of the results. So you will see with the event, so this is the actual stop bar event coming from the otoscope camera. So there are some virtual loops setting up in the video image. And as the vehicle passes through, they will have algorithm to activate. The activation on and off will be registered as detector events in the ATSPM. You will see some of these yellow and red actuation. Some do coming during that period. So this is actually part of Rowan's team's effort looking at some of the activation. So essentially red activation, looking at arrival on red, arrival on yellow. They did actual comparison with the actual video data, compare with a reference to the signal data, and to look at how these how the kind of severity of these violations. It's minor, but it still exists. So, right. These are some of the additional effort we can probably going to look at, further explore how we can kind of directly export some of the high capacity manual level service information based on what we have in the ATSPM. That's essentially it for now. I do have more information in the final project report, and also a lot more diagrams. If you're interested, feel free to contact us. Thank you. Yes, yes.
So you shared the purpose and some the goals that for phase 1 and phase 2 for real-time traffic signal. I know that you're in phase 3. Are you able to share your goals for that and any type of accomplishments that have been maybe adhered to at this moment for it? I know
Yes,
it's still in work in progress, and you may not be able to share everything.
So, So in phase 3, I think Kelly and the team probably have similar vision is to further expand this. So first off, we actually still working in between phase 2 and phase 3 to look at those live archiving. So we want to be able to get this actually published, so similar to Utah DOT, everyone can access, and also at the meantime expand the deployment. We have multiple leads right now looking at, I think we did caught SCAD's, the attention from SCAD's, attention from Transmit. They're looking to see if they can work with us to bring this, bring more high resolution data to date. And we're also looking at some of the conventional deployment to locations that doesn't have adaptive signal but may have network connections. So those are some of the ambitions in phase 3. So we hope to expand this map for the ATSPM deployment in New Jersey. So, all right. Thank you. All right. Thank you.
Welcome everybody to our second breakout session. The presentation will be on assessing high-resolution connected vehicle data for TSMO applications. The presenter is Dr. Jo-Young Lee. He's a professor with the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering at NJIT. Before NJIT, he served as a laboratory manager at the Federal Highway Administration, and his major research interests are connected vehicle technology and its applications to traffic management, traffic signal controls, and cooperative vehicle intersection control for autonomous cars. Dr. V. Is this your phone?
Good afternoon. Well, as you see from the program book, Dr. Jizia Zhong actually supposed to give this presentation today, but he couldn't make it. So I was summoned all of a sudden, just a couple of days before this presentation. So anyway, I'm Jo-Young Lee. I'm with NJIT, Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering and ITS Resource Center. If I take a liberty to give some background about the ITS Resource Center, we are a research group for NJDOT, ITS kind of the activities and any kind of related actions. One of our missions of Resource Center is to scan newly emerging technologies and then pick one or two of them every year and conduct some kind of preliminary investigation or evaluation to see if those technology will be making a good benefit for NJDOT from the perspective of TSMO. So in that sense, every year we reviewed some data-related technologies, and then last year we picked up this new emerging data set obtained from individual vehicles using vehicle telemetry, which provides very high resolution data set like positions and then other vehicle maneuver information like braking, accelerating, everything. So I will present about what we found with respect to that new data technologies today. All right. So the background is please have a seat, please. All right. Every year the data collection technology has improved a lot, and then recently, especially for vehicles produced after 2019, they came up with a certain communication device to automatically report kind of not just only position information, but also vehicle event like braking, handling, or even the seatbelt operation condition and whatever. And then they started kind of selling that kind of data to not just only government entity, but also like industries and academia as well. And then we realized that that kind of data would produce unseen benefits, not just only for research purpose, but also from the TISMO perspective as well. So in that sense, we then picked up this particular data set called WIJO. WIJO is company who actually they collect and then the process and then distribute data coming from individual vehicle equipped with communication device, and then it has two different the types of data set. One is just like movement data, and the other one is event data. Well, long story short, event data include the position like lat long, and then the event data include drivers, the actions like braking, accelerating, and even kind of wiper operations, everything. So it has a very kind of the promising kind of data resolution in temporal and the spatial aspect. In case of temporal resolution, it has 30-second update interval. So every 3 seconds, it keeps sending its position information. I'm talking about now the movement data. And then in terms of spatial resolution, it has 6-digit decimal point of individual vehicle position information. So let's say our latitude and longitude, after 40 point or the something, it has 6 digits there, which is very granular that can distinguish different lanes as well. And in terms of volume of data, movement data is kind of huge, kind of the 25 the bigger than event data, because event data is just recorded when a certain event happened. So with that data, I prepared some slide here, the video clips. This shows the individual vehicles' trajectory data on the entire New Jersey with this 3-second pinging interval. And then the other one is for individual vehicle. So we also have this trajectory data as well with different speed at a different location depending on the congestion condition as well. So with that, what we did is, we first investigate whether these data sets are valuable enough to be used for a lot of different purposes, including TISMO. So as a first step, we looked into whether data set itself is enough in terms of its sampling rate. So to get that, we actually compared this data set with what we called ground truth obtained from WIMS stations spread out throughout the New Jersey. And then, as you see in the table here, depending on roadway functional classifications, 1 through 4, which is defined in WIMS station data set, it has 2.5 to 4.3% of kind of market penetration rate. Well, as you see here, first classification 1, which indicate the interstate highway, has only 2.5% of the market penetration rate or sampling rate. But as you see here, average volume, which is about 3,000 per hour. Well, that means every minute this data, or vehicles with this data availability captured about 70 minutes. So 70 vehicles per minute indicate every 1 second. 70 vehicles per hour, meaning every 1 vehicles actually captured every 1 minute, which is good enough to represent a real-world roadway condition well. And with that, we got some kind of confidence. Maybe this data set will produce great benefits with respect to TISMO, the perspective. So, and then we also investigate kind of the some discrepancies with respect to the trends of data set compared to the ground truth for each stations, and then we compared what we see from a WIMS station and what we see from the sample. Well, particularly here on New Jersey 3, Here we have this kind of very well matched, I would say the perfect match data trend for each time period as well. So, and then, but the route 168 has a little bit kind of the less promising performance, but still it can capture the trends very well as well to be used for some other applications. Well, if we take a look at some details about data, the data actually consists of some kind of information like to be used for identification of vehicle type using this kind of the VIN number, and then some others kind of the informations to say this is the kind of the normal vehicle or EV something. Well, with that, we could use this data for some kind of vehicle-specific application as well. And then, based on this finding, we started developing some kind of use case to see whether this is really kind of the beneficial for TSMO perspective. I will briefly go over one by one, starting from kind of the risk driving kind of the scan throughout the state of New Jersey. Here, I don't know whether it can be seen well. This indicates kind of the hotspot, making very hard braking condition of individual vehicles obtained from event data. And then plotted on entire the major street in New Jersey as well. And then we also narrowed down the scope of roadway to identify kind of the dangerous driving condition roadway segment. For example, here I-287 and then I-80 interchange. I don't know whether you guys have been driving that area. It's kind of quite kind of the challenging to get safely merged. And then we found that here eastbound of I-80 287 has very high hard braking kind of maneuvers over there, while that westbound is less. And then we also able to kind of identify some kind of segment-wise kind of the location making kind of the gentle driving and then aggressive driving as well with this data set. And this data set also used for some kind of the genetic traffic monitoring purpose as well. But to avoid any potential confusion in this room, what we did so far is based on offline analysis. So when I say this traffic monitoring, it does not indicate it is completed in online data field at all. But we just kind of mimicked this kind of condition by using this data set too. Anyway, so as you see here, we have some kind of crash happen on this area that makes kind of the lanes blocked starting from somewhere this time period. And then as you see here, we see the kind of the huge spillback to upstream of this roadway segment, and then NJDOT started kind of detour, and we are now able to see some traffic actually try to move this alternative roadway to avoid the lane closure conditions. So, and then third application we tested is parking analysis by analyzing individual vehicles' trajectory data in and around major parking space near to the train stations. Here, we and then made some kind of the geometrical kind of the spatial boundaries there, and then the picked up vehicles using this parking space, and then kept checking the movement of that vehicle based on different time period time of day here, and then we were able to see completely different some sort of the in and out behaviors in and out to this parking space as well. And then we also expanded this to major highway in New Jersey, and then were able to make this kind of clear some sort of the shot showing the very active the parking activities. We also conducted kind of the ATSPM-like application as well. It's completely not quite different from the what the Kelly did with respect to the ATSPM, but we wanted to see whether this data can be some sort of the alternative to fill out some the gap caused by kind of the available data set to capture real world traffic condition. So here we picked up this intersection on Route 35 or 36, and then made some kind of the trajectory the displaying here, and then it shows the traffic changes depending on the intersections control operations. Based on this, we were able to make some kind of performance measure like that. Here it actually makes some kind of the time-space diagram, which could be used for Purdue coordination diagram as well, and then automatically calculate this performance measure for each the street connected to this intersection as well. And then, well, there are a couple more applications we are working, and we will work with respect to this data set to see or to explore applicability of this data set for teachable purpose. But I believe I have been talking about some bright side of this data set, but we had to go through a lot of challenges to make this happen with respect to the data here. First of all, data is too big. We have 2 months of the data covering entire New Jersey, but the total amount of data size is about 9 terabyte when it was zipped. So if we unzipped, I don't know, I don't remember how big it is. So to make efficient kind of operation of data, like queries and everything, we have to spend the significant amount of time, effort, and money to deal with that, including this kind of dedicated data analysis machine using Hadoop. I don't remember how much exactly, but I guess to make that hardware, the kind of the facility to deal with this is much a little bit expensive than purchasing this data set. But finally, we were able to make some achievement with respect to data analysis and then the data handling, including some data format changes, and then some kind of the indexing approach. And finally, we were able to make a very great achievement to handle data set, which took 3 hours to make one query. After our effort, we can make it to the 2 minutes here. Yeah, I guess that's pretty much of what I can show at this moment. But if I summarize as a key takeaway, then maybe, well, this data set can provide some sort of acceptable kind of market penetration rate to represent traffic condition well, which range from 2.4 to 4.5%, depending on types of roadway. And then the trajectory data is found to be very well representative to the traffic stream. So with that the trajectory data, we could do some kind of relevant application that we need more accurate traffic conditions on the roadway. And then Well, these types of data sets now become more popular and popular. When we started this project, it was not quite easy for us to acquire, but now, well, with that, more kind of the vehicles with the vehicle telemetry equipment, the data sets and the sampling rate actually keep increasing. That means it could have kind of the very good benefits for a lot of different Gizmo applications. And then, well, still kind of the handling data set in an efficient way is another challenges, but it could be kind of handled with some other kind of data management techniques. But unfortunately, I am transportation engineer, so maybe I'm not that quite kind of responsible to make that kind of efficient data handling. Anyway, these are the pretty much of my presentation. Again, well, thank you for joining me. And then if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. Okay.
Quick question on the vehicle penetration. I know that it's a secret on what type of vehicles they actually have access to. But what do you generally feel about it? Is it more of a rental vehicle, the Uber Lyft vehicle, or it's more big for a particular vehicle model? I just want to see if there's potential bias in there. Like,
Well, okay. So I would say, okay, it has no such a kind of type of bias that you said, because you think probably all the data provider coming from commercial fleets, like kind of the taxi trucks, or maybe Uber drivers who are able to kind of send the data to the server, right? Well, that might be the one group of data set that you can send, but well, any kind of vehicles, small vehicles, produced after 2019 or 2020, actually come up with a certain kind of the data logger, vehicle telemetry equipment. If you have your the kind of the built-in navigation system in your car, which shows real-time congestion conditions, that probably probably indicate that particular type of vehicle is able to share this data. Okay, so I would not say I don't want to say it is not completely biased, but I would say the bias is not that quite significant. Yeah. That's okay.
They didn't tell us which vehicles they have, because like we say it's secret, but from the squish win we were able to actually see that it was all GM vehicles. So it seems that Vito had at least had at that time some kind of partnership with GM, and you can see yeah, you have this on the slide. You can see Chevrolet, you can see you know, GMC, you can see, so based on that analysis, we concluded that they probably had some kind of partnership with GM, and all the vehicles that were included in our data set were, you can actually see the make, the model, and you can see the type, because some of them are SUVs, some of them are pickup trucks, some of them are sedans, and they are really vehicles that are sold to public, and they could be used for personal use, or they could be some kind of rental fleet. They could be anything. So I think that eliminates bias in a way that the use is widespread, but there is a bias, you know, with respect to the vehicle type, because we don't have any Hondas or Toyotas yet or whatever. However, I know that they are working hard to get other manufacturers. I know that Volkswagen in Europe signed on with Visual, so now I'm getting data from Europe. All the Volkswagen, which is the largest European, you know, kind of vehicle brand. But besides that, we noticed that you can actually, looking at trajectories, kind of conclude when vehicle is used for some kind of commercial application. Joanne also has a video that he captured one trajectory that was interesting because the vehicle kept running in circles, but here, look at it. So it starts in one place and goes around, then, totally like, and the vehicle is a sedan, and of course, we don't know, driving, we don't know, we didn't really want to do any investigation, right? But it seems like a Uber or Lyft, going around picking up the passengers, or it could be a delivery. It's a sedan, so it could be done for some kind of commercial purpose. But this is something you can actually extract from the data set that we were able.
Yeah, that's another story to kind of the screen these kind of vehicles out. So, all right. Good. Yeah.
We looked at original destination. I don't know if we can do that slide.
We don't have, but we have this kind of different types of roadway. So,
But we went to actually we are for a different purpose. So we were trying to see the original destination of this. Yeah. So we're actually going to look
yeah,
at
well, we didn't investigate kind of the distribution of OD with this data, but as we can get from this table and chart, right? Well, actually, vehicles are well distributed throughout the city there, which covers many kind of the ODs as much as possible. Yep.
how many, like there are input with large number of samples, input with very small number of samples. That is still the attention or and we'll do that too. Yeah. Like Joanne said, I think since 2019 all the vehicles are equipped with a system that can report the
Small vehicle, yeah.
but whether they do, it's up to the manufacturers and also the commercial the market.
Yeah.
Single trip, like if the guy is going somewhere, right? Or if some of the car has
Well, yeah. Well, it's kind of, well, first of all, we use event data, which includes kind of start and kind of the stops and of the vehicle driving. Okay, and then, but it does not guarantee such a kind of a short kind of layover at a certain kind of a gas station or something, right? Well, long story short, right? We are developing a certain algorithm to get this well matched, and then testing it, and to see if that algorithm works well to capture this kind of the actual one single trips with some other ground truth data. Once we have it, I will let you know.
even the Uber and Lyft people are driving around.
Yeah.
And they took like 5 minutes.
Right. The only the clue that we can have at this moment is analyzing event data. Okay, but that's, as you said, like Uber driver, just a 3-minute kind of the staying over. It does not mean they completed or they still kind of continue the trip yet, right? So we have to have some other kind of the information to be incorporated to analyze this as well. Any further questions? Okay, moderator is not here, so let me finish it by myself. All right, thank you. If you have any question, please feel free to contact us.
Of non-motorist involved crashes in New Jersey. Our final presenter is Dr. Hannah Eunice. Dr. Eunice is a postdoctoral research associate at the Blaustein School of Planning and Public Policy at Rutgers University. Her research interests include sustainable transportation and promoting equity. Dr. Eunice?
All right. Oh. Okay. well, I don't know. I guess it's okay. Okay. All right. So yes, that's the title of my presentation: Factors Impacting the Fatality of Non. How do I like? Oh, I messed this up. I just want to make sure it doesn't keep lowering. I don't know. A little bit. Yeah. Okay. That's fine. I guess it's fine the way it is. Okay.
Let's not touch it too much after.
All right. Sounds good. So this is my introduction and research questions. So fatal non-motorist involved crashes account for 1/3 of all fatal crashes in New Jersey. Non-motorist involved crashes, either fatal or property damage only, occurred disproportionately more in low-income and minority communities. So this is what this was the motive behind this study. So those are some of the research questions that I'm doing. What is the relationship between those crashes, geocoded crashes, and then low-income and minority communities? What is, where are the community hotspots in New Jersey? And then finally, what are the risk factors? And I do that using a binomial regression analysis. So the data that I gathered is from the Safety Voyager database from NJDOT. So there are over 31,000 pedestrian and bicyclist involved crashes between 2016 and 2020. I also used the numeric data to kind of, they both have about the same information, but the age column, for example, was retrieved from the numeric data. And then the other data that I used was the sidewalk and crosswalk data from the DVR-PC region. So that's only for 4 counties around the Philadelphia area. And then the overburden communities data that came from NJDOP, the population density data was from the Smart Location database, and then high-income communities came from the U.S. Census Bureau. And then that little map that you see is the sidewalk data. So Mercer County is one of those counties that has that data available. And then it's zoomed into to where we are right now, to Mercer Community College. So you can see where the sidewalks are in relation to us. So I was interested in how many of the crashes, non-motorist involved crashes, were geocoded. Why is that important? Because when you're trying to pinpoint problematic corridors, problematic intersections, you need the spatial locations. The street name, when it's something like Route 130, that's not going to be helpful, unfortunately, because it's just such a long stretch of road. Smaller roads, it might be okay to have just the street names. But for this, I am using just the geocoded crashes. So 90% of crashes are geocoded, and that number seems to be increasing year by year. But that still excludes 3,000 crashes out of the 31,000, and 20 of those crashes were fatal. So 20 fatal crashes out of almost 1,000. So the geocoding rate for fatal crashes is actually a lot higher. It's 98%, so it's much higher than 90, but it should be 100. And then the rate of geocoded crashes varies from municipality to municipality. And that was very interesting to me. And that really prompted the question, are crashes more likely to be geocoded in high income areas than, or in areas with more white people? And you can see in here, the municipalities are sorted by the rate that they are geocoded. And it's the top 25 largest municipalities in New Jersey, and you can see like the difference between, for example, Camden, Patterson, and Elizabeth, where it's around 75 to 80% are geocoded, compared to Hoboken, for example, that has 97% of crashes that are geocoded. So the correlation between the percentage of geocoded crashes, income, and race. The correlation, so for example, so it's 0.2 0.2 for non-white people, and crashes. So what we gather from that is that as the percentage of minorities and low-income people increases, there are more reported crashes. And then as the percentage of minorities and low-income households increases, those reported crashes are less likely to be geocoded. So we're already talking about overburdened communities that have more crashes per capita than other communities. And then on top of that, those crashes are less likely to be geocoded. So you're less likely to see them when you're looking at a map or when you're trying to identify specific intersections. Yeah, so that was pretty interesting to me. So I used the overburdened communities database from the Department of Environmental and Planning. And I am using the overburdened communities that are at least 35% low income, and at least 40% of the residents identify as minority. And these communities make up 21% of the New Jersey population. And this is important for the next slide, because while they account for 21% of the population, 40% of crashes occur in those communities. So they're twice as likely to experience a crash. And when I say crash, this whole time I'm talking just about those pedestrian and bicyclist involved crashes. So not the car and car crashes, just the ones that involve a motor vehicle and a pedestrian, or a motor vehicle and a cyclist. So yes, so that's a huge problem that we have. A person in a overburdened community is twice as likely, essentially, to be involved in a crash than not in an overburdened community. So the hotspots for bike ped crashes per capita, all crashes per capita tend to occur in the northern New Jersey, and then with some hotspots around Atlantic City and Cape May. And then it's a huge difference with the fatal crashes. So fatal crashes, on the other hand, don't happen or they do happen, but not as the hotspots for those are actually mostly in southern New Jersey. So another thing that I saw from that is that where a crash is a crash is likely to be fatal 3% of the time in New Jersey overall for pedestrian and cyclists. If you look only at the DVRPC region, it's 6% likely to be fatal. So for my regression analysis, I was looking at what factors impact whether a crash is fatal for a pedestrian or a cyclist. And then do those factors differ between pedestrians and cyclists? And then is the proximity to a crosswalk or sidewalk a significant factor in the fatality of pedestrian crashes? And you'll see the map of New Jersey with the orange outline as the DVRPC region. So those are the factors that I considered: the road type, light conditions, environmental conditions, the vehicle type, the speed of the roadway, the availability of a sidewalk and crosswalk, and some socio-demographic variables. So this is the overall tables, but the next slide has this table has the odds ratio, and then the next slide I will explain those in more detail. So the age of the non-motorist, if the non-motorist is 65 or older, they are 2 to 3 times more likely to suffer a fatal injury than the younger cohort. The road system, state and U.S. highways are more likely to be fatal for pedestrians, around 3.5 times more likely than local roads. Light conditions, this is one of the largest factors here, is dark conditions with no street lights available. those increase the risk by 6 to 7 times. So compared to daylight. So yes, the crash is around 7 times more likely to be deadly if it occurs in a dark area with no streetlights available, as opposed to with streetlights available, where it's around 3 times more likely to be deadly. So those streetlights do make a large difference. The posted speed, as expected, is around 3 times more likely to be deadly if it's a roadway of 40 miles per hour or more. The truck or bus collision is particularly more likely to be deadly for cyclists, where it's 10 to 13 times more likely to be deadly for cyclists as compared to a cyclist and a car collision. Not having a sidewalk or a crosswalk available is 1.6 times more likely to be fatal for pedestrians. Cyclist crashes in low-income areas are 1.6 times more likely to be fatal than outside of those areas. So some of the conclusions for planning, light conditions make a huge difference. If you're identifying areas that are in need of street lights or have broken street lights should be one of the highest priorities for reducing crashes. Crosswalk and sidewalks, identifying areas that might be missing sidewalks and crosswalks is another one. Speed, which might be more complicated since people are so used to the speed roadways. Bike lanes, so I'm not accounting for bike lanes, but what is really important to note here is that low-income areas, which crashes in low-income areas are 1.6 times more likely to be fatal, tend to have much fewer bike lanes than other areas. So this might explain why there is an increased likelihood of fatality. Identifying low-income areas that might be in need of bicycle lanes is another one. And then finally, there are data considerations, variables that I could not use in my regression because they just were missing in too many of the records. So for example, road lanes, the number of road lanes is missing in 83% of the records. The sidewalk and crosswalk data is only available for the DVR-PC region, and it would have been really interesting to do this analysis for the entire state of New Jersey. And then the availability of a bicycle lane is not something that I could find anywhere for New Jersey, at least not an up-to-date data set. So thank you, and please feel free to contact me. Oh, do I have any questions? Yeah. Well, some of the times, I mean, so from what I understand, a lot of this is sometimes that the law enforcement does not have the resources or the time to figure out the latitude and the longitude of a point, of every point, especially if they're understaffed or it's just not as high of a priority. That is my understanding of why 10% of those crashes are not geocoded, and also why the geocoding rate is a lot higher for fatal crashes, because I assume that they pay a lot closer attention when a crash is fatal.
That doesn't include any post-processing with cross-training.
Right, no, it does not. Right. Yeah. Any other questions? Sorry, what? I am not sure. No, not in this specific project. Yeah.
countermeasures also in there?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Yeah. Yes.
Back to that slide that had hotspots for the
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I'm just very interested in indicating that there's a lot of hotspots in not only the DVRPC region, but also SJTBO.
Mm-hmm.
What are the factors that contribute to that? You try to tie that into some of your conclusions work.
So, since the analysis focused mostly on the DVRPC region, one of the factors based on that was really the sidewalk and crosswalks. But you're right, like I don't have the information, especially for the area in Atlantic City. But it 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 is generally in those areas I identified are generally ideas that are areas, sorry, that are less funded, that have fewer capacity for road improvements. And some of them are also very rural, and it's just less safe for pedestrians and cyclists to walk around or bike around. So, yes.
You had a slide that shows the impact of the different features on the
Mm-hmm.
pedestrians. Consider the independency of the features, or you thinking that they are
So yes, right, like whether they're correlated or not. Yes.
actually you was thinking that you assume that they are independent. But,
Right.
I'm not sure is that the right assumption for that. Or
So they don't suffer from like multicollinearity. None of the factors were exceeded, certain level of correlation between them. There might have been some that I excluded if they did, right? But I can't remember off the top of my head if there were. Yeah. Yes.
So have you was looking at the spot? I live in the North Jersey, where you have that spot there, and now I live in South Jersey. And based on this map, it's kind of makes sense to me. Have you looked at the correlation of the speed limit to the injuries? Because North Jersey will have lower speed limits, more stop signs, more flags. South Jersey usually has higher speed limits, 35 miles an hour, 45 miles an hour. West North Jersey is pretty much 25 once you get off the highway.
Mm-hmm.
And North Jersey neighborhoods are stretched out, and you have less highway lighting, less traffic lights, and less stop signs. People drive faster off the highway.
Okay. Yes. Well, those are the factors. I mean, they were counted in the regression. So, right. So I guess what is your question?
Is there a correlation to the speed limit in this map?
Well, there is a correlation between speed and crashes. Yes. But again, it was accounted for in the regression. So for the map, I am not looking, like the map is for visual purposes. I'm not looking at the speed there, although that would be really interesting to do kind of look at those two factors specifically. And the other thing is that also it's the posted speed. So it's the speed of the road, as you mentioned. It's not the speed of the car. So there could be cars that are, speeding excessively in an area where the speed limit is lower than 40 miles per hour. Yeah. Yes.
Used the overburden communities, metrics based on DEP.
Mhm.
Doesn't DVRPC have their own set of metrics that consider things like limited English proficiency and things like that?
No, yeah, it's possible. I think for this, I was just using like a metric that was available for the entire state of New Jersey so that I wouldn't have to use more than one source for that. But the data set does include the people who have limited English proficiency, even the overburdened community does.
I think they're a little bit different though than what DEP uses. I'm just saying.
Okay.
Because I think the region is so unique.
Uh-huh. In that case, yeah, no, that's a really good point. I think that's something I'll need to look at then, yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Do you think there's any fines associated with people violating, driving in the bicycle lanes?
I don't know about that. Yeah, that's a really good question. That's not something that I could look at. I that's something that I really want to have is the bicycle lane information. I think um that would really pair well with the cyclist analysis, and I wonder what that would do to the low income community variable. Will that be insignificant once I account for the bike lanes, in which case the two are likely to be correlated. But no, but to answer your question, I haven't analyzed fines and bicycle lanes and
Drive through cities, and sometimes I see people using the bicycle lane as a passing lane.
yeah.
Mindset is when they're driving.
Yeah.
In a situation where bicycle should be, suppose the guy came out between two cars, was in a bicycle lane, and this guy's coming down the road and he's, see,
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's not right.
Sorry. So now that we've established that there's a correlation between communities and a lack of geocoding of these crashes, I wonder if there's any interest in looking at the implications of this lack of geocoding for these overburdened communities. And, maybe doing that kind of research would help, make the case for focusing on, technical assistance or whatever's needed.
Right.
So these communities
Right.
can get the geocoding.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I mean, like a lot of this spatial data, researchers usually only look at spatial data. They're not looking at the cross streets and trying to label them individually. There's 3,000 just of those pedestrian and bicycle crashes, and then if we're looking at overall crashes, there's way more. So yeah, so a lot of the time when researchers or even practitioners try to identify problematic intersections, they're really only looking at those. And yeah, so we're missing data in those overburdened communities that would be really useful. Yes.
Just to follow up on that, so I missed the earlier part of your presentation, but does the geocoding occur when the police officer is doing the crash records?
Right. So it might occur then, or it might occur like when they're starting to input. I'm not sure exactly. Some people in this room might know more than me about that process.
I know enough about that to kind of get myself in trouble, so I would just say that what happens, and what I'm aware of, is that police officers have to fill out this TR1
Right.
form.
Yes.
There's a crash. Our data group is working on an electronic crash records system, which will enable police officers to be able to put the data in more efficiently. One of the problems that happens is that an officer may write down crash occurred, next to the Dunkin' Donuts, but that's not very specific. And our crash records staff have to go back and look at this
Right.
and figure out where the crash occurred.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of challenging.
Right.
So one piece of this is to have the electronic crash records to help with that. And I guess it could also be like kind of to your point that there are some of these overburdened communities, they face a lot greater challenges with law enforcement and so many other things they have to deal with.
Yeah. Right. That's very true. Yeah.
Some of that information is missing on the TR1. Reports.
Right.
But like you said, they're not specific, some of them. Because, the officer that's writing the report, he's like getting there after the fact. And then he doesn't really know because maybe it could have been hit and run.
We have some of the crashes are not important, so we don't get 100% of the PR ones that are supposed to be done. So there's
Right.
sometimes challenges.
Yeah.
Well, I work for highway traffic safety, and we have the daily reports when they have specific campaigns. We try to get some of this information and still on to the reports. But sometimes because the officer is like, lackadaisy and some things, he doesn't completely throw a report out.
Do you think we could develop like an app or something that just had a GPS on it? You could form on an app?
I think that's, sorry.
No, but no, this is interesting.
What the electronic reporting is supposed to do is to be able to pinpoint the location.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, then that seems like it would at least help like narrow that gap at least. Yeah.
Could be developed in safety way.
Yes. Yes. Okay. All right. Well,
What percentage of non-motorist accidents do you think are never reported, especially in underserved communities?
so
I'm sure you have no idea.
no, right. Yeah, and this is not the first time that somebody asked me that question. And the thing is, yeah, like we don't know. I don't know. I assume that fatal crashes are probably reported to a level that is close to what it is. I would hope so. But property damage, only those are probably less, yeah, less likely to be reported. Oh, okay. Thank you.
Or it is going to be like after a couple of days, within a month, it becomes fatal, then the state police, there is a whole system, and there's one dedicated person, she will get all the crashes. So the fatal crashes will get. But there are certain times we do not get any crashes, like for example, when I was there in 2015 and 16, New Brunswick did not submit for 2 years any crashes. So we had to finally get out, and the reason was the person who was the administrative person, she retired and nobody knew.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you everyone.